Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
When you get the text alert that there's been a plane crash, it's obviously natural to wonder, is everybody dead? How did it happen? Was it terrorism? And then you learn more about what happened in DC last night around 9 o'clock, and it may be as simple as an air traffic control issue with a commercial plane landing and a government helicopter in the way. And for whatever reason, the collision mechanisms in the plane did not work, and there was no way to pull up, and it was a crash. And two modes of transportation crashed into each other, and everyone died, and they were 1 minute away from landing. And one of the things that's happening right now, and while you're going to get news all day about a recovery operation and bodies being pulled from the river, if you've been to Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., you know that it's right next to the city of D.C. It's extremely close. Just across the water, you can see the monuments as you're landing. Team charters aren't allowed to land in Reagan. They have to land in Dulles. Private planes don't land at Reagan. They have to land at Dulles, which is about 45 minutes out of D.C. And the reason is that they reserve Reagan because it was an airport that was built so close to the city and so close to where all diplomats are. And how about our government, our capital, is that they want to limit the amount of questionable aircraft or any aircraft. There are helicopters flying around all the time when you land at Reagan. And it just doesn't occur to you when you're flying that you're going to become the stat. And the thing about becoming a stat is that it causes this level of anxiety, and people don't want to fly, or they're scared of flying, or there's an amazing thing that people rationalize where they won't travel with their spouse if they're without their kids because they don't want their kids to have no parents, which of course can happen anyway. Frankly, driving to the airport, which people do together, is more dangerous than flying. But there's something about what happened last night that jarred me through the night. Well, it doesn't take much to keep me up during the night, but I have not gotten more scared of flying. And you know that in my family past, there was a plane crash where my aunt and uncle died in a plane crash back in 1994. It's not a fear of flying that I have. It is a fear of dying. And so I always say to myself when I'm flying that, hey, it's been a good run. And I think of it that way. And I sort of tip my cap in my head. And then I think about what it is when I am flying. And I think about when you're landing, which, by the way, is statistically more dangerous than taking off. But that said, it's all statistically safer than just about any mode of transportation likely these days, including the subway in New York. But the poor people on the plane from Wichita, including the people from the figure skating team, and you're waiting for family to land, and then you see this crash happen, and you're a minute from landing, and you just assume that everything's great. It's a bad day, and I want to give you one little bit of news on this. When you read about air traffic controllers and the issue that it might be, there is a major issue with air traffic controllers right now, that they are overworked and that the towers are really understaffed. If you've noticed delays at airports, the ground crew is understaffed. The flight crews are undertrained and understaffed. There was such a huge contraction during COVID and then such a quick buildup that there was really no way to properly train or keep up with the demand that was now required because people started traveling again, and the supply of people had dried up because during COVID they had been furloughed, let go, and they went to other jobs and realized there was no reason to go back. Being an air traffic controller, it's incredibly stressful, not a whole lot of upside in terms of career improvement. And the money's not perfect, not great, not terrible. The anxiety is obviously ever present. And we are at the whim of people who we hope are trained. And we think about it in terms of ATC, and we don't realize, of course, that we're at the whim of people who we hope are trained every day. When you pass an 18-wheeler on the highway on 95 north or south or on 495, you'd like to believe that those truckers have been properly trained. When you pass drivers on a 2-lane road at night and picture, as I always do, that I'm going to be driven into, and so I'm paying unbelievably close attention, thinking that I could do swerves to maneuver away. You're hoping that the person driving is A, not texting, B, not drunk, C, awake, and D, has been trained. That's in theory what a license is for. And it's hard to be an ATC. You have to go through many tests and many different levels. It's actually hard to get it. There just aren't enough of them. And so we can mock all of the training and think about, from haircuts, God, is my barber trained, to going to a movie, is that a classically trained actor, to driving, to flying, to all the different. I hope the person who made my food prep is trained in cleanliness and food prep. So it's everything that we do. And you can't spend your life under the assumption that someone's not trained, because then you're what about Bob? And you don't want to be that if you can possibly help it. Peeing in a jar is not the end all be all, as close as we are, or I am, to being there. Howard Hughes reference, Coca. So I am thinking about the families, because you don't recover from that. And I can tell you from personal experience, there's no getting over it. 31 years later, it's ever present every day. And when families suffer tragedies, whatever the tragedy is, learning to live with it, how you proceed, what you do, level of entertainment that you want to get, I guess I'm going to do that in case there's any families listening or anybody's traveling today. Let's talk about the NBA, please. That would have been my word of the day. We're not going to do a word of the day. Adam Silver's funny. Commissioners are a lot like E.F. Hutton. When they talk, people are going to listen. When you go on the Dan Patrick Show and you're Adam Silver, you don't go on without an agenda. You don't go on without talking points. You are prepped. And even if that doesn't work out and you fumble the interview, or you get overwhelmed by Le Batard as your interviewer, whatever the case is, you've got a plan going in. Adam Silver, during his conversation with Dan Patrick, dropped a Woj bomb. He said, the NBA is the only league that plays 48 minutes. I'm a fan of 4 10-minute quarters. I saw the clip of that because it was teased, and I didn't reach out to Coco, which I normally do, because I assume I'm being punked, or I'm on the wrong site, or I'm about to get a virus, more so than from touching the poles on a subway. Whatever the case is, I assume there's going to be an issue. But of course, I hit click, because if I see Dan Patrick, I assume I'm good to go. And there's Adam Silver looking right at the camera, telling us that he's considering a 40-minute game, and then dropping, oh, we've got work to do, putting aside, he said, what it means for records and things like that. A 2-hour format for a game is more consistent with modern television habits. Well, that's clearly not true, because 10-episode binge-worthy shows are 10 hours. You've got 5-part shows. You've got movies that are 3 hours and 35 minutes that may win Best Picture. You've got football games that last 3 hours that are getting 57 million people. What do you think Adam meant? Do you think he meant that his new media deals, there was talk at the table, wouldn't it be great if we could fit these games into a 2-hour window? We're going to lose a bunch of commercials in that last half hour, but don't worry, we'll make it up on price. Do you think that's what NBC and Disney said to Adam? Said, oh, we'd love if we could just block from 8 to 10 on Sunday and Wednesday. The fact that global basketball is 10-minute quarters, Olympic basketball is 10-minute quarters. The real problem in basketball is not the extra 8 minutes of play. Dear Adam, the real problem in basketball is your stars don't play, and when they do play, the game is so ugly to watch because it's chuck and duck. That's it. Everybody has decided analytically that you're either behind the line or you're dunking the ball at the hoop. The mid-range jump shot, the 15-foot jump shot, the pick and roll, the give and go, it's done. It's ISO, 1-on-4, get into the lane and then kick out for a low percentage 3 and watch a team shoot 7 for 43. And then if you're lucky, you can watch the start of the game where a team's up by 15 and say to yourself, wow, that doesn't matter because I only need to watch the last 2 minutes. And then you say to yourself, to watch the last 2 minutes, I better keep about 22 minutes of my time available because it takes forever. How about that? How about addressing the real issues that face basketball and not get on camera and talk about the fact that you want your game to have the international number of minutes because, spoiler alert, you want to do an NBA Europe League. Spoiler alert, you have a huge interest in figuring out how that you can get more fans, how you can get more money, trying to wonder why it is that people have issues with Joel Embiid making a hundo for watching games. And now we're meant to think that this is going to be the thing they're going to focus on. Mike Malone is the Nuggets coach, and he was happy. He said, I love that the NBA is looking at viewership trends. But he said, I give the league credit because they're always trying to find ways to keep the fans engaged. But I hope we don't go to 10-minute quarters. I hope we don't put in a 4-point line. I hope we don't become Barnum and Bailey. That's a circus who abuses elephants and then is no more. Or do whatever we have to do to keep viewership because there's a greatness and a history to this game and a purity to this game that I hope we can find a way to stay true to. Mike Malone represents what I call traditionalists. Mike Malone is representing what scores of old-time people in baseball talk about. I don't like the pitch clock. I don't like the intentional walk. I don't like the fact that we have a disengagement rule. There's only a certain number from the rubber. I don't like that we enforce a shift. People should be able to play wherever they want. If you want to play 9 guys in right field, 8 guys in right field, frankly, why is there a rule there to be a catcher? Throw it over the plate, and if it goes to the backstop, it goes to the backstop. Not exactly sure why having conversations with these people for almost 2 decades, their point always was, why would you ever tinker with the greatest game in the world? And my answer always was, everybody tinkers with everything. And I would say to executives and owners and GMs, let's pretend that you worked in another business and you got really rich in that other business, the way all the owners did who got rich or wealthy or comfortable doing other stuff. Do you do your management meetings and your retreats year after year and say, way to go, guys. No changes coming this year. Then you have your meeting the next year. Oh, we are rocking and rolling. Stay the same. It's absurd. There is no business that should ever stay the same. You're always trying to improve. You're looking for incremental benefits. You're looking to increase revenue, cut expenses, increase margin, increase everything you can in order to make your business more valuable, to get more sales, to engage with more customers. Today's news is tomorrow's toilet paper, literally. And so for anyone who says we don't want the NBA to change, I would say let's look to where we do want the NBA to change. And then I would tell you that the 10-minute quarter is like 69th on the list. But for Adam Silver to float that, that means that it's been thought of, it's been discussed. He's not doing a trial balloon on the Dan Patrick Show that has not had trial balloons done elsewhere first. Now, Dan Patrick has a show where if you're going to give an exclusive or you're going to find a vessel with which to float another more advanced trial balloon, I'm in like Flint. But Adam Silver knows that he alone can't make a rule change like that. So I'm wondering how the conversations went with existing owners, whether or not they've asked, how do we get paid if the games are a half hour shorter for the sales that we would do in that half hour? What do we do for sponsors who potentially know that they're getting 2.5 hours times 41 games when it goes to 2 hours? So forgetting all the money issues, Adam Silver clearly has croissant on the mind. He spent his time watching Victor Wembanyama win by 30 over the Pacers one day, lose by 30 to the Pacers the next day, and he didn't look at the game and say, wow, I think we should make some changes. I'm going to give you a wait to see here, and it's an easy one. I'm sorry. And it means we have to be here for 2 more years, Coca. So I'm sorry. By the way, what time will we have the announcement on the Sports Podcast Awards today? Do you know? Today's the day. Today's the day when we find out whether we're losers or a winner for the sporting class and for nothing personal. We will let you know tomorrow or on David P. Samson on X, or maybe we'll Instagram something about it, Coca. I'll give you a wait to see. There will be no 10-minute quarters in the next 2 years. There is zero chance that he will have the ability that quickly to get to a change that significant and also that meaningless. Today's episode is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Do you think Caitlin Clark passed on the NBA All-Star Game 3-point shootout without telling anyone? Think she told her manager, her agent? Think she called up Steph Curry? Spoke about it with Taylor Swift, like during halftime? Hey, Taylor, should I do that 3-point contest? What do you think? You think Indiana gets consulted? The Fever? They're building that, what is it, $100 million practice facility? The Caitlin Clark effect that we hear about and read about. Remember last year when Steph Curry beat that player for the New York Liberty, Sabrina Ionescu? God, we did this before the show. 4-8-69. And this way you can make it clean for DraftKings Network at 10 a.m. this morning. Hate to be like, hey, we're the best baseball podcast. He can't even pronounce Sabrina Ionescu. So that was exciting last year. Part of the NBA All-Star Game, which we talked about yesterday, has things that need to be changed, like the slam dunk contest. They've changed the game format because it was such a joke. I think the final score last year was 269 to 268, something outrageously ridiculous. Caitlin Clark, it came out yesterday, is not going to participate in any sort of All-Star Game 3-point shootout. She wants to save herself and save the exposure, save the 3-point contest, save the attention that would get, and she wants it to be with Indiana. Because the WNBA All-Star Weekend is July 18th and 19th. Guess where it is? It's in Indianapolis. I can't even imagine how that happened. Do you think that a decision that Caitlin Clark makes is made without the NBA knowing? Do you think that they read about it on Twitter? Oh, I guess we can't find her. I guess we're not going to get her. When there's an announcement made that she's not going to do something, there has been negotiations. There have been payment talks. There have been agreements by the NBA to allow this thing to happen at the WNBA. Because contrary to what you may think with the WNBA or women's sports or how independent you think they are, there is not one decision the WNBA makes without consulting the NBA. Not one. From all-star to teams to locations to expansion, not one. Is it in the best interests of the NBA to have Caitlin Clark do a three-point shootout at the WNBA All-Star Game and not the NBA All-Star Game? I would argue it's a terrible decision. Caitlin Clark doing a shootout at the WNBA in Indianapolis by itself is not going to drive real value the way the attention that she would bring to the men's All-Star weekend in San Francisco, which has had nothing but negativity. Nothing. Bringing that moment of positivity, bringing that demographic, expanding the audience is exactly what the NBA should be doing. There would have been a deal to be cut with Caitlin Clark, with the Indiana Fever, with the WNBA that would have had Caitlin Clark come to the All-Star weekend next week. Is it because she wants to, it's February 16th, recovering from the Super Bowl with Taylor, wanting to take a little time off? I can understand why she didn't want to join the Unrivaled League, though, with the deal she was offered. It is pretty staggering to me, supposedly, not that I have any information, the rumored deal that she was offered, but all in the name of tired and exhaustion and all of the issues with my time. Quick note on time, Coca. Do you know why people are busy? And I used to fall into this trap where I would tell people, oh my God, I'm so busy. Like, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm exhausted. I can't function. The fact of the matter is that we program ourselves. And when I say yes to too much, I overextend myself, overexpose myself, and drive myself to exhaustion, which makes me sick. In my family, when you're exhausted, you get sick. And when you're cold, you get sick, strangely enough. Caitlin Clark's schedule is Caitlin Clark's schedule that she's deciding what to do. Would there have been a way for the NBA to cut a deal and to pay her enough money? For sure. It is pretty telling to me that the NBA did not do this with Caitlin Clark. And it made me think that maybe they don't want you, the audience, to believe that they need Caitlin Clark to make the All-Star Game special and to make the weekend a success. God forbid they would ever admit to needing a woman to take care of a men's All-Star weekend, which used to be a huge, huge deal back in the day. And now they have a hard time getting a blip. I still believe, and we have a wait to see on this, I still believe they will find a player from the WNBA to do a three-point shootout during All-Star weekend. It has not been announced yet. I still think they should do it, much because I have a wait to see that they will. But I do think that that is interesting, and I think it is worthwhile for the NBA to continue to show, like the Lion King, the WNBA, in the hope that actually value will be driven. What did they announce, Coca? They announced that Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are going to do it. You're saying that would be fun if they did that? That would be fun. But I think it's better to have a woman from the WNBA who can win, who can shoot. Are you all interested in Bill Belichick? He signed his contract with the University of North Carolina. He's apparently going to coach there, of course. All the legal scholars out there will smile with me. Before he had executed his contract, people had been saying, oh, this could be a setup. He's going back to the NFL. He used his leverage. Oh, we just got word he signed his contract with UNC. He's staying put, not going to the NFL. Here's the funny thing. In the contract, there are provisions that allow him, with the penalty, to leave. All a contract does is codify that which the behaviors of both parties, and then what to do if both parties don't behave the way both parties are supposed to behave. That's what it is. It talks about remedies. It talks about either specific performance, we're going to make you do something, or you don't have to do it, but we're going to need the money. And we'll have to prove to you how much money it's going to be, and then we'll prove it, and then you'll pay it. Those are the general parameters of contracts and also of how you enforce contracts. There's either something called specific performance, which is I don't want money. I need you to do what you said you would do. There's no one else who can make these widgets. You got to do it. That's specific performance. Compensation, damages, that's just you didn't do what you were supposed to do, and it's fine, but make me feel better by paying me money as though you had done it. So him signing his contract with UNC, it does not change the odds of him going to the NFL. And there's something about Bill Belichick that very few other coaches have. It's almost commissioner-like. When he talks, people listen and people focus on it. And he said something in a joking manner that got my wheels spinning. Somewhere around 2:27, prior to watching a documentary this morning, I started really thinking about if we renamed every trophy in sports, and the name of the trophy in the NFL that they're playing for on February 9th in New Orleans, Chiefs and Eagles, is called the Lombardi Trophy. It's what everybody wants. It's the Super Bowl trophy. In Major League Baseball, it's called the World Series trophy. Bill Belichick joked and said, I think we should call it the Brady Trophy. Brady's got 7 Super Bowl wins. He then went into an explanation as to why, and I laughed my kishkas off. He wants you to believe the following. Vince Lombardi was a coach, by the way, of the Packers. It's all about the players. I don't care how good a coach you are. You have to have good players, great players, the best players. Tom Brady's won 7 of those things. I would think the trophy would be named Brady. The whole argument that caused the rift between Kraft and Belichick, Belichick and Brady, Kraft and Brady, all the different ways that fissures can happen in a dynasty when it begins to end because life goes on and people want to prove they can do it by themselves. They can do it without their partner, whatever the thing is that breaks up a partnership, which is usually, well, let's actually do this, Coca. What breaks up partnerships? And I don't mean marriages, but I guess we could put that in the hopper. Ego, feelings of fairness, feelings of withdrawal, boredom. It's feelings. That's part of it. Money. Belichick, Kraft, and Brady have broken up after a better than Chiefs-like dynasty. And the whole conversation was it the coach or was it the player? And we all know how Bill Belichick thinks. If you know Bill Belichick, it's the coach. You give me donkeys and I'll win the Kentucky Derby. I always believed that you couldn't win the Kentucky Derby with a bunch of monkeys because that's what Jack McKeon told me. But maybe Bill Belichick had this view that my brilliant mind is what won. Tom Brady assumed, maybe correctly so, no, you got to be good on the field. I don't care who's coaching me. I'm looking at the players. I'm looking at the sets. I'm reading the defense. I'm finding the receivers. I'm calling the plays. I'll decide when to audible. It's got to be me. My view always was that in football, much like in baseball, you need a complete team to win a Super Bowl. It is not like basketball where a super team can win the trophy in and of themselves. As a matter of fact, when you look at video of games, so take Tom Brady when he had an interception. His team had an interception at the goal line. Boy, I don't want to get this wrong. Against the Seahawks, where it should have been Lynch running the ball from a yard and Russell Wilson threw an interception. I want to believe that my memory is right, Coca, that the Patriots intercepted that. And you see Brady on the sideline jumping for joy as a fan would, because he's not controlling the defense and they would have lost the game. Same concept as baseball. When you win a World Series and you need a good pitcher, and if your best hitter's not up, your best hitter's not up, which is why I like the wild card hitter where you can send up whoever you want in the ninth inning. Bill Belichick said during this conversation, I had Lawrence Taylor and Carl Banks and Jim Burt, and he's naming all of the players he had with the Giants. He's naming all of the players he had with the Patriots. What's the World Series trophy called? It's called the Commissioner's Trophy. What did I say? It's not named after anyone. It's just the Commissioner's Trophy. I said World Series trophy. I meant Commissioner's Trophy. But it's the same thing. It's not named after Commissioner Seelig. It's just called the Commissioner's Trophy. Anyway, that got me totally distracted. So Bill Belichick is naming all the players that got him all of his rings. And he's got 8, 6 as a coach of the Patriots, 2 as a coordinator, defensive coordinator with the Giants. 2 of the great rings you could get over the Broncos and the Bills. I'm here to tell you that there is no chance that the Super Bowl trophy will be renamed from Lombardi to Brady ever, no matter how much Belichick was joking. And I'm here to tell you that Lombardi and what he means to the game, and the fact that you want to honor someone like a Vince Lombardi, and I'm not talking because I'm a Milwaukeean and because I love Green Bay and I love the Packers and I love Wisconsin. I'm telling you that Lombardi and teaching the future generations about Vince Lombardi and Super Bowls 1 and 2, yada, yada, is very important, because everyone will know about Tom Brady because of internet and video and Google and social media, etc. I guess that's it on that. I had one more thing, Coca, but we're going to go to break. I'm going to save it. I have one more. I had one more. No, I'm not going to save it. One more quick one on Bill Belichick. His desire to stay relevant and stay important is funny to me. And he's a great coach, and I love him as our coordinator when he was with the Giants. But the pressure for him to win at North Carolina and not to become another failed coach or just another old schnook who takes a job, it's the same thing with Pete Carroll and with the Raiders. These guys, because of their age and how great they were and what they've done, the pressure on them is so immense that I'd like Bill Belichick to focus less on media and less on quotes and start thinking about what he's going to do to possibly get North Carolina to be a real program. All right, we come back. It's time. We get to review our number 74 movie, and we will review that. And then we're going to talk about something that happened in Utah that blew my mind, and it has nothing to do with alcohol sales or 5 wives. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson, 8 a.m. Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, please. We need it. We don't get subscribers from foreign lands of people who just have fake accounts. That's the number of people who are watching, and we would like more because it's fun. And we're free agents soon. So subscribe and download. Thank you. Every Thursday, we will review a movie from our top 100. Please go to the website, davidsamsonpodcast.com, and then have empathy for the fact that when I told you we'd have new items and I told you we'd have a sale, it never happened because Coca and I are busy doing shows every single day. And we focus more on the shows. And when we're done with the shows, we're doing Levitard or Sporting Class or myriad other things. And we just don't get to it like I haven't redone my top 100. And then it makes me feel guilty and it gets me up at night. And then I don't do them because I start watching a movie because I want to have something amazing to review. And then you get to the weekend and I'd rather do like get a little sleep if I can, which I can't, or spend a little personal time, which I try to, and end up still working and stressing, getting ready for Monday's show. And then it's just a grind. But I don't want you to feel sorry for me because I love it and I get paid for it. Not in that order. No, I do love it more. No, I don't. It's a tie. It's a tie. And it's because of you. So thank you. Silkwood is number 74. Silkwood, Meryl Streep, Cher. Have you ever thought about what it would be to be a whistleblower? You know, there's laws now that didn't exist then because she's dead. Spoiler alert, hard to spoil a movie from 40 years ago, 35 years ago. I don't know the year of Silkwood, but I'm going to bet you're talking about 83, 82, 81, 82, 83, 84, somewhere in the early 80s, somewhere before Coco was ever a thought. 83. I mean, that's prime. Can you imagine being 15 years old and going to a movie and watching a movie about a whistleblower who then gets killed because she points out things that are wrong at a nuclear reactor, and you're saying to yourself, wow, I really want people like that. And then when you get older and you get through law school and you're in your 50s or 40s and they have these whistleblower protection acts, and then you realize that they're still not protected because the truth is that whatever's done legislatively on Capitol Hill or in your individual state is actually encouraging people who don't know anything about anything to whistleblow because there's money associated with it, as though that's how we're going to get people to whistleblow. Hey, we'll pay you. Just tell us really what's going on. Karen Silkwood did it because it was the right thing to do. Please watch it. I mean, just watch it. Okay, random number generator. Way to go, Coca. Number 14, Grand Canyon. Now, this is a movie that in most incarnations of my top 100 was in my top 5. I moved it down to 14 when I did the list again in last January, or the January before that. It may have been 2 years since I've done this. And Grand Canyon is a movie that I fight with people about. I'll review it next week. I'm going to watch it again. I haven't watched it probably in a year at most, but I will watch it this week. You got to get yourself to the Grand Canyon. When you're choosing something for your team, you've got lawyers and you've got a checklist of things that you do. The Utah Hockey Club is in a real pickle. I like Utah. It's gorgeous. I don't necessarily love some of their rules and regulations. Not a big fan of the rules of the Mormon Church. Love Book of Mormon, though. They have a hockey team. Did you know that? In the NHL. Did you know they don't have a name? Did you know they were going to get a name? They had this big thing. It was going to be the Utah Yetis or the Utah Yeti. When I saw that, I thought to myself, that's a funny name because I associate Yetis with the things that I put drinks in to keep them cold when I don't go to big sporting events, but I pretend that I'm going to a family event or something when I just want cold water or cold juice or whatever I'm drinking, or to keep food cold when I'm traveling from place to place. A Yeti cooler. Travel with Yetis, camp with Yetis. I didn't really associate it with Sasquatch Man, but discussing today's show with Coca, apparently a Yeti is also a Bigfoot and a Sasquatch and an alien. I was not aware of that. When you choose a name for your team, like the Florida Marlins, the Miami Marlins, when you choose a logo for your company, the order of operation is the following. You give your league about 2 years' notice that you're looking to make a change. We're going to do a patch celebrating our 40th anniversary. We're looking at changing the nickname. We're looking at changing the color of our jerseys. Major League Baseball, much in all the leagues are the same. They approve or don't approve this change. They've got an in-house lawyer, and they also can outsource to a copyright trademark firm, an IP firm, intellectual property, which is the word for that. And they then get the copyright, the trademark for your name. You own it as the franchise. The league is responsible to clear it. The Utah Hockey Club tried to get the Utah Yeti or Yetis, and it was ruled that the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has decided to reject the name and logo that they had submitted for approval. The Utah Yetis rejected. Why? Because they said that's a little confusing. And that, it sounds totally insane, doesn't it? But that's literally it. So I want to tell you a story about me schlepping up to the Panhandle in Florida because we had a new logo in 2012 and we were getting ready for it way before 2012, going from Florida Marlins to Miami Marlins, a logo that people were like, oh, that's too colorful. That's too rainbowy. Oh, wow. It's the #1 selling logo in MLB for that particular moment, that particular year. It did great. So for all the yucks, there were a lot of yums, but whatever, you're going to get criticized. We were submitting all of our logos, the alternate logo, the main logo, anything we were doing on our jerseys. We needed to get the trademark. And there was an issue with a store up in Pensacola that was named Marlin Store. And the logo was the Marlin that looked just like what our Marlin was going to look like. I didn't think that our M looked anything like Maroon 5. I didn't think that Minnesota's new M looks like our M, sort of. But these are all things you do in advance. So you schlep to Pensacola, you negotiate, because you have to make sure that nobody's going to object. And if they are found by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, that you can say to them, hey, we went to these people. We have an agreement right here. There's no confusion. Everything's fine. My view always was confusion. Do people walk into your store where you're selling clothing and fishing rods and fishing hooks and think, oh, do you also sell shortstops? I'm not sure there's anything that gets confused between Pensacola and with Miami. Do you think that if the name of your team is the Utah Yetis, that people are walking into the center to watch hockey and they're saying, hey, where are my coolers? Give me a break. If you are making a soda that is ginger gale, I get it. That may be confusing. I can't find the other G. So now what does Utah do? They're totally screwed. So they have to pretend that they're acquiescing in some strange way to fans. And they're trying to make chicken salad out of chicken. And instead, they're going to have a bunch of games coming up, like 3 games. And they are going to ask the fans to vote on what the next team name is going to be. So fans who attend the next 4 games will have this opportunity to vote. There's 3 options, and they're going to give them tablets, and you get to vote. And I was laughing about that. You know where I stand because I've spoken to you about it. But I'll do it again because we have new listeners every day. When we ask for fan input, we're not really taking it. We're not really taking your suggestions. We don't read your suggestions. It doesn't matter to us how the fans vote for a particular thing. The team name is chosen in conjunction with the league. The colors are chosen in conjunction with the league. The colors are approved. The name is approved and wanted by the owner of the team. What owners like to do is say, oh, we totally want to know what you want, and we're going to make sure that you get it. So the way Utah will do it is they'll choose what name they want. They've narrowed it down to these 3. God hopeful that whatever name they want has already been cleared and they've gotten the rights to it, and they don't get this level of embarrassment again, which is outrageous that it happened in the first place, as though they didn't know there'd be a bunch of people engaged with the word Yeti. Don't bother voting. That's what I would do if I were you in Utah. Nothing. Personal pick of the day. We had the Suns plus 1.5 at home versus the T-Wolves. Nope. The Suns lost. Think Matt Ishby is angry that he spent all this money thinking he had it all figured out. He traded for Durant. He's building a dynasty. He was going to win championships upon championships upon championships. Meanwhile, their team stinks. And the other owners are thrilled. But we're not. We're 10-11. We're taking the Vancouver Grizzlies tonight. Wow, that's weird. Bryant Reeves is clearly not on the team anymore. 12-18-69. Tonight's nothing personal pick of the day is the Memphis Grizzlies -5 over the Houston Rockets. That may scare you. The Houston Rockets are one of the best teams actually in basketball with names that you've never heard of. But the Grizzlies have been playing really well. And as much as I've been down on Ja, which reminds me of OAR, crazy game of poker. You say Ja, I say of a revolution. Grizzlies -5. It is so hard to admit when you're wrong. I never minded because I felt like if I always admit when I'm wrong quickly, then I get to say when I'm right just as quickly. And I feel like ego that I'm going to be right more than I'm wrong. And I feel like I get credibility when I say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It's like the corrections I make on this show. Do you think Major League Soccer is standing up today and saying, oi, we were so wrong about that Apple deal? Do you remember when they signed Lionel Messi and they gave Messi that ridiculous deal that gave him a piece of the Apple deal? And when Apple had done a deal with MLS saying that all of MLS games would be behind the paywall at Apple TV and that Messi was going to get a piece of all the new signups and that everyone was going to get rich together? Wouldn't you know it? No one cared. The new signups for Apple, the numbers, which will never be released, but the reality is the deal has not worked in the first 2 years. And they said, well, it's a 10-year deal. We're paying about $2.5 billion. We started in 2022. We need a new plan. MLS announced a new plan along with Apple. Very rare for Apple to admit that they had a misstep, or for Major League Soccer. Don Garber must be rolling in his office. They want to give access to people. That's exactly the concept we were talking about. That when you do a deal like MLS with Apple, you're really ahead of yourself because there's not a lot of demand for Major League Soccer, and you overestimated the impact of Messi. People aren't watching, to wit, the MLS Cup ratings were DOWNNN. Uh-oh. And this is not to be confused with Major League Baseball teams who used to be on FanDuel Regional Sports Network, which is what it's called now. Sorry, DK, or the formerly known as Bally's. And now teams are doing it on their own or through Major League Baseball and through MLB Network. And they're all saying to you, hey, I was trying to wink there. Hey, we're giving everybody access. Isn't this amazing? No. What MLS realized and what Apple realized is that they need help. They're in the middle of a deal that's gone south. So they said, why don't we do a deal where we give people the right to get a bunch of soccer games without having to buy the whole damn package? And as a matter of fact, why don't we start a Sunday night game? That'll work. You won't compete with Sunday Night Football, quite obviously, but we'll do a Sunday night game and we're going to make it available to anybody who has Apple TV. You don't have to get the plan. Then we're going to do a deal with carriers. We're going to do a deal with Xfinity and DirecTV that you can get Major League Soccer games right through that provider, right in the channel guide. You don't have to go to the Apple TV app. What a stroke of genius. Who would have ever thought that they need to do that? I do give them credit for acknowledging, after only a few short years of a 10-year deal, that they were a little premature in going behind the wall at Apple because they weren't quite ready as a league. They didn't quite have the audience. And now they have to acknowledge that while Inter Miami can say they're worth $1 billion and all these people can just throw enough crap against the wall and hope that something sticks in terms of valuation, like what happens in WNBA or the NWSL or various other places where the league values are not necessarily what they hope them to be, but it's aspirational. make it till you fake it till you make it. For you to turn around and make this decision and announce it the way Major League Soccer did and hope that we just buy it. Hope that we say, oh, this is so sweet of them that they are giving us an extra night of soccer. They're giving us a way to get these games in a way we never had. This means everything is rosy. Nope. It means it's been a disaster. When they sit down and come up with solutions, basically what they're saying is, we're going to do something because it's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.